Well, good morning, everybody. It is Friday, May 20th, and it's Experience Friday Live. And yes, I am here. I am 7 days out of surgery and here and healing well. And Michael's actually on a plane again today, so Michael won't be joining us. But it is so good to be here. Needless to say, this journey has been interesting. And we're on the journey still a little bit longer. Just a quick update. We did get some notifications yesterday that there was some other cancer that they have found. And I'll be meeting with an oncologist next week. And as soon as I know what my treatment plan is, as I said from the beginning, I'll be open, honest, and transparency with all of you. And I'll let you know what that is. And I thank you guys for your love and prayers. I've tried to keep up with all of it on all social media channels. But if I missed you, thank you again. I'm really excited to be here, needless to say, for what's happening and why we do this show and why we keep doing it. Experience Friday Live is all about the experience ecosystem, those touch points, those interactions, and those systems that we build within an organization. And I think today is the first time we've really dove in on sales and revenue generation. And I'm really excited about our guest, who is a new friend in my world that I met in Atlanta about a month ago. So we're going to dive into that, as well as don't forget about next week. We will have Sam Chandler, Director of Startup Success at Zendesk. She'll be joining us on the show, so you want to mark your calendars for that as well. Well, with no further ado, I want to jump right in to the bio and get Laura here on stage with us. But Laura Hall, VP of Marketing and Customer Experience at Revigi, is a marketer that loves sales. She's a firm believer that the surest path to revenue growth is a BFF relationship. And I love that. A BFF relationship between marketing and sales. The bulk of her experiences in B2B brand building, messaging, demand generation, sales effectiveness, and value selling. Her approach is driven by passion and a stubborn belief. I don't hear that very often in a bio, but a stubborn belief that we can always be a little better as revenue generators, leaders, and humans. So we want to welcome to the stage, Laura. Hey, Laura.
Hey, glad to be here.
Well, it is so good to have you here on the show. And as I mentioned in some of the opening, Laura and I met actually at the CX Forum in Atlanta, which was on, I believe, April 18th. So we're right at about that month. And just loved Laura and loved her passion. But most importantly, and you don't hear it talked about a lot, is her passion around how experience and revenue generation coincide so deeply. So we're going to jump into that here today. But Laura, we ask everybody this question right up front. And it is, why do you do what you do? And what keeps you motivated as you do it?
Well, my first response when I read that question, Sean, was because I wasn't good at math. But not just that. I have kind of run around my career between sales consulting, marketing consulting. And I just love being around these types of people. I truly love salespeople. I think they are the most fun individuals that exist in humanity. So I've just always tried to kind of stay close to that. And, for me, I think about this all the time is, the second that I'm not having fun at work, it's time to leave. But I'm having the time of my life, and some of the best stepping points in my career have been when I've been marketing with salespeople for even sales technology. So it's fun. I'm passionate. It's always changing. And there's just so much we could do.
Well, I love it. And I was actually, before Michael got on the plane this morning, having a conversation with him in particular, and I hope we dive into it even more in our conversation around this huge disconnect between sales and experience. Because to me, in so many organizations, when you think about even marketing, because a lot of organizations, marketing and customer experience are separate, and sales, there's a lot of this that happens, right? Like point and blame and a lot of CYA, right? Cover your ass stuff. Like, oh, it's their fault it didn't happen. But in your bio, and I talked about it when you were when I was reading it, you put the surest path to revenue growth is a BFF relationship. That kind of takes me back to junior high, and I have a 13-year-old junior high girl, and we have a new BFF like every 3 seconds. But a BFF relationship between marketing and sales. Where does that breakdown happen when we talk about that, and particularly about these 3 functions that we talk about?
Yeah, I think you started to hit it right on the head. We're going in these directions, and it's a complete lack of communication. I mean, you hear all the time sales talking about marketing gives me crappy leads, and marketing talking about sales never follows up on my leads. And then everybody just kind of ignores CX. I feel like half the time they're left on the outside, and they get handed over these accounts where, who knows what sales has told them in the sales process, and they're now left trying to deal with it. So what we do at Revigy is just have very real conversations about it. And when we have customer handoffs, even before a deal closes, I want to bring CS in so that they understand the success metrics that sales has talked with the customer about all the way through the process. And ultimately, that leads to better customer experience, because if you've ever sat on hold and waited through the dial-in system through AT&T and repeated yourself 5,000 times, you know how frustrating that is. It's just as frustrating in B2B as it is in B2C. And I think we have to start managing customer expectations like they're consumers, because they are. It's still human to human. And when we lose sight of that, we all start looking out for number one, or looking out for our own departments, and everybody fails at that point.
Well, and come on, Laura, like really, like we're all human. Right? Like but I love that perspective that you're saying from B2B is no different from B2C, because I do think, and you heard me say this from the stage, I think we as the customer experience world have shot ourselves in the foot, right? And we need to, and I love Zach Hamilton is a very dear friend of mine there as well in Atlanta. And I love what he talks about when he says, we are still we're still running a playbook from 25 years ago, right? And we do experience management, and we don't build experience systems. And that's why so much of that keeps happening, in my opinion, right? Is that happens because people there's not a system to built to take place in this. And so I love where you were talking about that. So let's dig further then. How can focusing on the customer's experience help eliminate this issue then? And how do we get from this?
Yeah, I mean, it's back to that. Are we having that transparent, open communication internally, so that when we go to the customer, we understand what their questions are, what their problems are, we're having the right conversations with the right people. And then down the line, I mean, most importantly, especially if you're purchasing a enterprise piece of technology, they want to see what the ROI is. But more than that, they want us to make them look good. At the end of the year, end of the day, they can come to their boss and say, hey, since implementing technology X, we have increased XYZ metrics. And then they can directly correlate that to their success. But if there's a massive communication breakdown internally at the seller level or the customer success level, you never even get to have that conversation, that relevant conversation with the customer. And I think we just get so, like you said, our playbooks, we're running these old playbooks, and we're caught up in the same talk tracks we've been using for years, rather than kind of pulling our head up and saying, wait, what are we really talking about here? What do they really care about? Because my playbook is generic.
Yeah. So let me ask you your thought about this, because I do think, again, Michael and I were having a conversation around this, that a commercial organization, so sales in most organizations, right? They don't even, and maybe it's because there's not a strategy, and maybe that's why I'm asking you this question. Around this is they don't even think about the end user experience, or the customer that's buying that software, right? Or what's happening, because their leadership and their senior leaders are telling them our metric that we have to meet is this sales goal, right? So they're focused on the sales goal. You've got someone in marketing like you, right? You have a different metric and goal that you're measuring your team to. Then you have what I would even call a customer success team, right? And many times that's either customer success or account management, and they're being told to upsell, and so they have a different number. And then an organization has, an experienced chief experience officer or experienced person who has absolutely no authority over any of those organizations, but being told you need to drive the NPS. What the hell are we doing, Laura? Like, I don't understand it. My mind just wants to like beat my head. If I could bend over, I would do it, but I can't. I still have incisions right now. But why? Why do we make this so complicated?
I mean, it starts at the top. It starts with the metrics that leadership is establishing. And it's that old saying, what gets measured matters. So you have to have a common set of metrics. It doesn't have to be everything. Yes, you still have to have a sales quota, but there's got to be something that you all contribute to. Is it, sales responsible for some retention metrics? Is it sales? Do we have a post-sales NPS that we drive towards as well? Is it, I don't know, any number of things based on the business situation you're in. But if you don't have common metrics, of course, everybody's only going to worry about what they're getting measured on. You're not incentivizing them to do anything different. We're coin operated. We all are to some degree, whether you're in sales or not.
Yeah, well, that's true. And I talk about that from my Disney days. Our goal was to build revenue, right? We knew that, but we didn't talk about it every day. We didn't live and breathe it every day. But if you're not profitable, which we all know Disney's profitable, right? And then I worked for an insurance company. They are very profitable, right? But we didn't talk about it every day. So I'm going to ask, and we did not have this at all in our script to ask this question, but I would love to know your opinion. And those that are listening, jump in, put in the comments what your thoughts are about this as well. What metric do you believe, Laura, when you're talking about all those separate entities within an organization, and you may have it already where you're at, what metric can be a common metric for people to be able to look at, but yet still meet all those goals?
Yeah, I think, and this is going to change business to business, depending on what you're selling and who you're selling it to. But for us, it's retention. Our salespeople do get involved in some of the larger deals that we have renewing. They also are held accountable if they sell something that doesn't exist or doesn't work the way they say that it worked. Not that that ever happens in any organization. From a marketing perspective, never. We won't tell those stories though. With our current sales team, it does not happen anymore. I will say that. I don't want them coming after me. But the other piece of it too is marketing. And I just took over the customer success organization in October, which is why I was at that CX event, because this is new to me. And what I'm realizing is it made me very aware of how ignored customer success is and how marketing can better support them. And they didn't know how to articulate it before because they'd never had a supportive marketing team. So now I've come in and realized, hey, marketing has a big responsibility to our customers too. Not, outside of just the, let's do some field marketing or whatnot. We have to create materials to help people adopt and continue to adopt the platform, help them be successful.
Michael's not here, so I can do this, but I brought my pom-poms out to be like, yes, like, yeah, I have so many stories, and we could drink. I can't drink alcohol right now, so I'll just drink my my water here. But like, yes, and I love that you are having that aha moment to say, how can I, as the head of marketing, make this organization successful, right? Like, and again, I hate to always keep preaching this when I talk, but I still look at how Disney looked at customer success or call centers, however, or you want to look at that is how do you equip them with empower them with the most tools that they need to make your customer happy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's it's so bizarre to me. It's so bizarre to me how, to me, it's so simple, but yet there's a whole industry of us consultants and people working in this space going, hello, this is what you need to do. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I would just add there too. I mean, this is where you can leverage sales, and where I've voluntold sales to do this is your CS team is not trained to sell. They're not trained on that consultative selling more often than not. So I'm like, we're selling a sales technology. We have a sales team. Let's use them and lean on them to coach us how to have better conversations and how to be seen as experts in our field, which is sales execution. Because if you're not leveraging your internal resources and making the ask of them, your resources don't know, and you're at a severe disadvantage because I mean, you have a free resource. Not that consultants are bad. Consultants are bad. I've been one for a long time, but you have a free resource internally, and y'all just again are not talking.
Well, and we tell people at Mophie, listen, and I'm very upfront and honest. And we've worked with the number one company, you know, in the world, Walmart, right? If we are still in there doing the same thing 2 or 3 years after you've brought us in, fire me and fire my team, because we haven't done our job. You know, now, do we not want long-term relationships? No, we have a very long-term relationship with one of the biggest diagnostics companies in our country. But we work on very different problems every project that we work with them. They just like the way we work, and they like the outside point of view. I'm not doing the same thing for them today that I did in 2018. That's what chaps my hide about consultants and the big consulting houses. Like, I can tell you, and you probably know this too, Laura, like, I have worked in some major corporations where I've seen the same deck be handed to the people that was handed in the previous corporation. And I'm like, this is, you know, that same concept of this 25-year-old playbook. So
let me just change the name on the slide.
Yeah, that's all they do. And I'm like, that's the same slide. And I got mad at you at the last corporation when you did this. Don't give me this shit, right? So how have customers' shifts and expectations impacted then the way that revenue generating functions, as we're talking about here, interact with them?
Yeah, I mean, I think as B2C has gotten smarter, as they build in machine learning and AI, I mean, we're operating this on a daily basis. When I log into Amazon, Amazon tells me that I need more toilet paper. And when I go to Netflix, Netflix knows that I want to watch, you know, the rest of Ozarks. And I'm operating like that in my day-to-day life. And I kind of just have that expectation, and my brain doesn't make that delineation between whether it's Netflix or whether it's, you know, HubSpot. I still want that type of experience, you know, and maybe we're training ourselves to be dumber as humans by always being given the next best action. But that's what I expect. That's what I want. You know, even if it's something small, like yesterday, we just started using Pindo to track people's behavior on our platform. And I hadn't logged in since I got the demo with our product person. And I got a random email from a CSM, which is probably automated, but it was still cool. Hey, I noticed you haven't logged in in a while. Can I help you out with something? You know, what's going on? And I was like, God, that's genius. And it's the smallest thing. All you had to do was tee it up. But you knew that my behavior wasn't your ideal behavior for a successful adoption. And you proactively did something about it.
Yeah, I love it. And it's funny. I had this conversation with my wife the other day about Netflix. And I've, you know, laying in bed the past 7 days, I've done a lot of binge watching, you know, and I love the fact, because, you know, you binge watch a show and you're like, so, you know, do I start asking for recommendations from friends? But I love that Netflix goes, no, you should watch these 3 series next. And this one's at a 99% accurate that you're going to like it. And every recommendation they've made, I've loved.
Yeah.
There's not been one where I've gone, huh? It's literally a couple of them I've gone, okay, I'm on pain meds right now, so I probably shouldn't be watching this because I don't understand it. But other than that, it has totally been, and I'm like, the brilliance of it, right? And again, Amazon does it, all of it. But I really have noticed it the last week, and you called it out on Netflix.
Yeah.
Okay, so in your space then, Laura, what experience trends do we need to be paying attention to for 2023 and beyond at that point?
Yeah. I mean, I think, like the Pindo example is proactively identifying what behaviors we know customers need to take to lead to success, and being able to reach out to them or reach out to your point of contact to describe that, to help them fix whatever the gap might be. I think the hugest thing too, being in the sales technology space, I mean, if you've been following along the last couple of years, the investment in this space has been insane, billions and billions of dollars. But what's happened is there are hundreds of sales technologies out there. And on top of that, marketing technology was a little before sales technology. Now there are hundreds of marketing technologies. CS is further behind sales, but there's some CS technologies too, and a use case in those other two spaces. This has to come together at some point, because like Netflix, I want to make it simple for me. I want to go to one place to look at my information and understand, what the state of the union is at this customer. It's something's got to come together, and I would put big money. I'd put my next year's salary on the fact that this is going to change probably within the next year. Somebody's going to make a big move soon.
Well, it's funny because we have 3 design principles at Mophie, and I stay tried and true to them, and I've had them really since I entered the experience space, 12 years ago. And it's going into that. We want to be known. So know me. I use the word surprise me. I don't like the word delight me. Some people use the word delight me, but we do a lot of work in healthcare, and I don't think I want to be delighted in healthcare. So I say surprise me. And what that means is, let me, like Netflix, they surprise me constantly with how they recommend stuff. And most importantly, you just said it, make it easy for me. Make it easy for me as a consumer. And we don't do that. And my concern, and this is where, and I think we talked about it some in Atlanta, how do we still stay with high touch and high tech? And how do we keep the balance of those? Because I saw the pendulum swing a lot in the healthcare industry. We're going to all digital. Well, there was only one problem with that. There was this thing called a human, and humans are in every healthcare interaction. So you can't just go to digital. People still want to, listen, I have to have a decision on what path of treatment I'm getting ready to take. I don't want a digital platform to spit out my treatment plan and say, here's what's best for you. I want to meet with doctors. I want to know them. I want to understand them, and then make that decision. I think it's the same thing in this space, but we have swung so far in the experience world. And you are preaching exactly what we preach at Mophie around the experience ecosystem. It's great if you have a self-platform. It's great if you have this platform. It's great if you have this platform. But they all have to be integrated, and they all have to be one place. And it has to feel seamless to me as a consumer.
The technology is great, but what it does is create ways for us as humans to create and deliver experiences. You have to use it to enable the customer experience, not to rely on it to replace it, especially in healthcare. I mean, you have to manage your own case very closely if you have any kind of serious illness. And that's, if you're on medication, almost impossible, Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting to me, because I do still track a lot of what Disney does, and they launched that Genie Plus trying to replace, fast passes and stuff. And I would say they have not brilliantly launched that, not the way Disney typically does. And I've seen iterations after iterations, which I love. I love them to say, hey, we messed up and we're trying to make it better. But I think that was a prime example. They tried to take some of that piece out of it, and it's come to backfire. Well, Laura, thank you so much for today. I'm assuming for everyone listening, best place to get a hold of you is go out and connect with you on LinkedIn.
Yep, LinkedIn.
And follow you. That's awesome. Laura, if you will just hang out for a little bit, I'm going to close up, and then I'll come back and say bye to you before we jump off the show. Perfect. So, well, everybody, again, it's Friday. Thank you so much for listening in. I saw we had people literally from Canada, from Argentina today, from Tanzania, from New York City, from there in Georgia. So awesome. Thank you for supporting us and listening to us continually. If you want to learn more about our company, Mophie, go to www.mophie.co. And a little bit more about me, you can go to www.seannason.com. You can send us an email either at hello@mofi.co or hello@seannason.com. We will be bringing a special edition this summer of our podcast, The Combustion Chronicles, our audio version of a podcast. Will be all about this traditional experience management to systems. It'll be a short series this summer, so be looking for that. You can connect with Michael and I as well as Laura on LinkedIn. But most importantly is that if you play in the experience ecosystem that we're talking about, wherever at in the system, we want you here on the show. Please come. Please reach out to us. I would love to have you here. And thank you again. Have an amazing weekend. I hope wherever you're at, it is going to be beautiful. And we'll see you next Friday.